Hello, everyone, and welcome to the June 2024 edition of CyberWork Live. This is an ongoing series dedicated to asking and answering questions about cybersecurity certifications, training, and careers with a goal of bringing insights and opportunities to listeners who are choosing their careers in cybersecurity. As always, we welcome everyone on board, but we're specifically answering the questions today of people who are just putting their first steps down on the path of cybersecurity, as well as those who are coming to cyber later in life and maybe from another career entirely. So if that's you, we are glad you're here and we are glad you're making this giant step. I would like to introduce you to our wonderful panel of guests today. So let's begin. Our first guest is a past guest on the CyberWork podcast and someone you might recognize from YouTube or other places online. Confidence Stavely is Africa's most celebrated female cybersecurity leader, the author of API Security for White Hat Hackers, as well as a talent developer and gender inclusion actionist. Confidence excels in translating cybersecurity concepts into digestible insights for diverse audiences. Her YouTube series, API Kitchen, explains API security using culinary metaphors. In its debut season, the series amassed over 500,000 views across social media as Confidence served up a banquet of API security wisdom. It's really fun. You guys got to check it out. She recently won the Cybersecurity Women of 2023 award and holds several other recognitions. Beyond her advisory roles on various boards, Confidence leads CyberSafe Foundation, a foremost NGO dedicated to fostering a digitally inclusive and secure landscape in Africa. She is also the founder of Merkelfence, an application security as a service consulting company. Welcome, Confidence.
Thank you so much. My pleasure to be here.
My pleasure as well. Our next guest is one of Infosec's own bootcamp instructors, so I know he'll have a lot of great advice for you. Akyl Phillips is a seasoned cybersecurity professional with 15 years of experience in the field. His career began with a distinguished 9-year tenure in the Marine Corps, providing a solid foundation in cybersecurity and information technology. Following his military service, Akyl had the fortune to work with top-tier organizations, including a top 3 auto manufacturer and the largest background check and media firms globally. He is also the teacher of Infosec's CEH Pentest Plus dual certification bootcamp, as well as the bootcamps for Security Plus, Security Fundamentals, and Cyber Threat Hunting. Welcome, Akyl.
Thank you, Thank you for having me, Chris. Thank you.
Absolutely. Great to have you here. So next, I'd like to introduce a returning CyberWork guest, educator, and InfoSec skills author. Robert McMillen is the past president and founder of Alltech One LLC, a Portland, Oregon-based network consulting company. Currently, Robert creates cybersecurity video courses for LinkedIn Learning, Infosec, Pluralsight, and others with his company Tech Publishing. He is also an adjunct professor in computer science and computer information systems in the Portland, Oregon area. Some of his higher profile jobs have been restoring email for the government to prosecute Enron executives, training the network vulnerability assessment team for the U.S. Army, and performing wireless security auditing for the state of Washington. The NSA also requested an interview, but he decided he had had enough people looking over his shoulder for now. Welcome, Robert.
Thanks very much, Chris.
Absolutely. So that is our panel. Confidence, Akyl, and Robert, thank you all so much for joining me today. So as we said, we will be taking questions from the audience as they come in throughout the event. And we have a lot of our own topics to cover as well. But we really want to keep it focused on the travails of the first-timer, the newcomer, and the entry-leveler. I don't know if that's a word or not, but I am using it. So let us begin. I want to get your advice for people who are just starting in this field. So I'm going to start with Akyl. You've been educating students with your Infosec Dual Cert, CEH, Pentest Plus boot camps, as well as Sec Plus and Cyber Incident Response and Cyber Fundamentals. So what are some of the common questions that people who take these classes have about figuring out their career path?
So I think in the very beginning, a lot of the questions are usually based around the anxiety of being in the field. It can be a lot of feeling anxious about the exam, trying to get over imposter syndrome, and actually trying to get your butt in the seat in that job, right? And the number one thing that I tell people is to do projects. The benefit of projects is that it's going to increase your confidence. And when you show up in the interview, when you show up with that blog on your resume and it defines all of your projects, we're going to go to that website and we're going to be impressed because whether you choose to believe it or not, most of your peers, they're not showing up with that level of get after it, right? So it really shows your character. And if you do that, it definitely makes a difference.
Fantastic. You've teed up an entire section that we're going to talk about later, so I'm very excited to hear that already. Now, Confidence, you've guided several cohorts of the Cyber Girls program and helped them kickstart their cybersecurity knowledge quickly, as well as helping them to move into meaningful jobs that can help them and their communities. So what are some of the common first step questions that the women in these cohorts ask of you and that you try to answer for them?
I think one of the first questions is just what Akyl has spoken to already. There is such a wide field and there's so much information. So we are having a situation where there's information overload for the average person who is looking to come into cyber. There's also so much buzz about a particular very small section of Infosec, which is ethical hacking, right? Everyone just comes in and wants to do ethical hacking, and they don't realize, just like you said, Chris, that there's a whole lot more. In fact, I would say, if that's not really going to be your thing, there are many more other rewarding, many easier routes going through, many more in-demand parts of information security. So because there's that shiny guy, and the movies haven't helped either, right? There's a guy always at the basement, tapping away at his computer, and he's so fancy, and everyone wants to be that person. So what I generally always say first and foremost is, get to learn the fundamentals. A lot of people just want to skip about 4 rungs and just go up the ladder, rather than making sure you get the basics right. So I want them to definitely get the basics right. How do packets travel across the network? What's the mechanics behind that happening? Do you understand or know how to use more than the operating system you're currently using, which in most cases sometimes is just an end user's Windows operating system. There are other operating systems, for example, that you need to be able to have an idea of or know how to use well. You need to, there are a couple of other things. You need to know, for example, understand a bit about the cloud. So all of those basics, and then exploring also the different sections or different parts or different fields within InfoSec. And how would you explore? Very easily, what you do is read a lot of blogs or go on YouTube and check a day in the life. So just search a day in the life. You'll find a lot of videos that are talking about different professionals, talking about different fields within InfoSec and what their days are like and what they do on a day-to-day basis. You'll also be able to see if that aligns with your innate skills and your interests, because this is such a challenging field to be in that if it's not something you genuinely enjoy doing, like enjoy enough to forget you've not eaten or had breakfast, that sort of enjoy is what I mean, right?
Yeah,
you need to find that part, that aligns with both your passions and what you typically enjoy, and then you're in for a long haul, because the journey is a journey. It's not a sprint. It's a marathon you're going to go on. So you need to ensure that you're maximizing your strengths, you're maximizing your transferable skills if you're coming from another area of another career and this is your second one. You're doing all of that combination, and when you make that choice, you can then also relate it, because this is another mistake I see quite a lot. A lot of people are stuck upon that path they've chosen, and they are not rounded enough to just find an area to get into. So what I mean by that is, in certain parts of the world, there are some parts within InfoSec that's harder to get in, entry-level roles. So for example, if you're getting an incident response role, you can easily find a SOC entry-level role. But that's not as easy as it is for, say, if you're a pen tester or if you are doing cloud security, right? So making sure that you're flexible a bit, but also, knowledgeable enough to deliver value to an employer is that right balance you want to strike. And then, of course, begin to apply for those roles, because you never know, applying for those roles after stacking on those skills, like I mentioned. And don't be afraid of the certifications. Just stack on those skills and build your confidence, like Akyl has mentioned. And that's what I tell people, and you would get that first role.
Yeah, I think that's exactly right. There'll be an upcoming episode that I interviewed David Lee, who's known as the Identity Jedi, and I don't think a lot of people know identity access management is even a thing if they're just starting to come into it. But there are so many related cyber roles that that he's incredibly passionate about IAM, and You could be the next person who's incredibly excited about, governance, risk compliance, or threat modeling, or incident response, or any number of different tangents. So I think it is absolutely essential to keep an eye on the entire topography. So let's go to Robert next. Now, Robert, you have a pretty extensive background in higher education, teaching, and as a course material creator. So you've had a lot of interesting experiences in the cyber field before that as well. But in our episode of our CyberWork Hacks podcast, we talked about providing listeners with some tips for starting career mapping early on in their studies, even before they're ready to enter the workforce. Can you sort of summarize for us about this? I don't think it's actually on the site yet. So tell us a little bit about early career mapping.
Well, that's one of the great things about education, especially if you're going to college. I'm looking at one of the questions here from Greg, says, how much coding do you need for an entry level? And the answer to that is you may need none. You may need some, or you may need a lot. And that's one of the great things about getting your degree in cybersecurity. This is a fairly new degree. It hasn't been out much more than about 7 or 8 years, I believe, for most colleges, and some haven't even quite gotten to it yet. But what it does is it exposes you to a whole bunch of different types of classes. And the classes will get you excited about the area of cybersecurity where you want to work. You could be on the inside where you're protecting, your network from hackers. You could be on the outside, being a white hat hacker, trying to, find out what vulnerabilities there are. There's lots of, different positions that you could be in order to, be in cybersecurity. And it's, based on which one that you're excited about and the one you go to, it's going to make a difference on the types of skills, the types of certifications, and things like that. However, there is a baseline. And that baseline is going to be things like the CompTIA A+, Security Plus, Network Plus, those types of certifications, especially since we're talking about cybersecurity. Security Plus is important. Now, you could be lucky enough to pick a college that will also teach to the certification as well, which could be very useful. You get credit and you get the certification at the same time. Or you obtain the certification, say, for one of Akyl's classes, and then you go in and you get credit for it at the college, which is great. So what I say is, if you're really new to this, go in with an open mind. Don't go in saying, I want to specifically just do this, because once you get exposed to the different types of cybersecurity and the different job positions that are out there, you might find that your position has changed. And you definitely want to have that open mind to help you decide what skills are going to lead you to success.
That's excellent point. And it does definitely is in the spirit of some of the things that people are currently asking in the comments. So for instance, Sheridan wrote, I recently finished my bachelor's degree in cybersecurity and working on CompTIA Security Plus. He's wondering what kind of entry-level jobs he should be applying for. We'll talk about job stuff in just a little bit later, but I guess, he asked, which I think is relevant right now, should he be worried about getting the certification first? Without it, he says, I feel I wouldn't be a serious candidate, though I have some IT experience. Do you have any thoughts on that? I'll pass this to anyone who wants to sort of answer that thought. Okay.
I've got you. Sheridan, really lean in and listen to what I'm about to tell you. My friend got a job at Microsoft, right? And immediately he started trying to help other people get hired at Microsoft. He started talking to hiring managers, and what they found out was that majority of the people who apply for jobs at Microsoft, they don't qualify. So what we determined from that conversation was let them tell you no, never tell yourself no, right? You might not feel like you're a serious candidate, but that's their decision to make, not you, right? And that's one of the things that I think creates a whole lot of imposter syndrome for people. Let the other side tell you no, right? You might not see how you have some skills that are transferable. You might be a personality fit, and that may be difficult to find as well. So always let the other side tell you no. Always let the employer tell you no.
Yeah, Awesome advice. Yeah, a no doesn't cost anything. I want to move on from here a little bit. So as you can see from the TikTok usernames that are asking these questions, Infosec is indeed on TikTok. Go follow us. We're at Infosec Institute. People are asking questions on certain videos, and so I posted a couple of them below. Someone asked, rather surprised, some people get Security Plus certs before Network Plus. People are asking if 701 or 601 is more difficult, which certification path to become an auditor, can you work in cybersecurity without certification? So, people are thinking, people have taken the time to ask us questions and think about these things, like whether or not, whether the order you study certs in is important, how you chain certs and experiences together for certain high-level roles, as well as tips for entering the job market. And so I just want to say to everyone who's asking these questions, I'm glad you're thinking big about these things because, we're looking at the road ahead of us, but also the work to be done further down the road. So as I say, as listeners send in questions to be answered, we'll break in the action now and again to make sure that these things are prioritized. So for instance, James Ratzliff asked, I'm targeting incident response. Is there a cert stack that's recommended? And I know, Akyl, you do some IR work there. Do you have any thoughts on that?
Yeah, sure. So in terms of incident response, typically incident response is a pathway that opens up right after SOC analyst, right? When you're a SOC analyst, you can go into incident response or threat hunting. Those paths are really open from there. So anything that would be good for you to understand the SOC analyst side of the house is usually pretty good in the incident response space. So I would say Security Plus is a really good cert. The CYSA would also be really good. And if you're really trying to go into the higher levels, look into the GCIH, which is the GIAC Certified Incident Handler. That one is usually pretty well touted for incident response.
Nice. Okay, good. Oh, here's a question I definitely want to ask. This is a different sort of question from Nadeem Sun. Nadeem asks, can you work cyber with only one hand physically for typing and such? Maybe just your thoughts. Anyone have any thoughts on the sort of physical requirements of working in cybersecurity?
Yeah, I'm not aware of any issues with just working, with one hand. I think that, when you look at the job postings online, you're going to see whether or not you need to be lifting certain, amount of weight. Sometimes they'll say, hey, you must be able to lift 50 pounds, things like that. In those particular cases, you may need to, ask HR if this is something that we can get around or if this is,
right,
something that we have to do. But I don't think a lot of cybersecurity, positions require, that, an issue, any kind of an issue with that type of accessibility problem.
Yeah, that sounds about right, and I think it does come down to, if you're able to, engage in your regular sort of typing and processes. Currently, I don't know that cybersecurity is necessarily going to be that much more. It's more knowledge based than it is, speed or what have you. So that seems, I think you can go forward with great excitement here. So I want to talk a little bit before we answer some more questions about learning how that you learn. So I'm not being facetious when I say that there's a lot of learning that goes into being a cybersecurity professional. Your brain is, I think all our panelists can say, your brain is going to be spilling over with protocols, tools, languages, compliance regulations, any number of things. So, there's going to be late nights on top of late nights as you learn this stuff. So, to learn it all, I want you to know that you need to understand how you learn, what works best for you. And again, like career mapping up front, you're going to be on better footing if you explore all your options before you choose one. So, Robert, I want to start with you. So there are a number of different ways that we can learn. So tell our listeners about the higher education part of the educational equation. By committing several years to an academic course of study, say computer science and cybersecurity, what are the ways that a computer science degree might affect your career objectives and possibilities? Are there certain types of opportunities it'll open up?
Yeah, that's a great question. When I'm done, I would love to hear Confidence's answer as well, because I'll bet she has some great insights into the way she teaches the girls in her area. So people ask me all the time, should I go to a brick and mortar school? Should I go to a completely all online school? How should I be taking my classes? And here's been my experience. If you have zero experience in cybersecurity, very little technology experience, just if this is something that excites you and you want to get into, but you're very entry level, don't go to an all online school. It's really designed for people with experience. You'll see postings all the time. Hey, I finished my 4-year degree in 6 months, that kind of thing. That's because they've had 10 years experience working in their field. And if you have 0 years experience, the percentage of people who actually get their degree is under 50%. So you really need to go to the school that fits you. And so with very little experience, go to community college, go to your local university, wherever you can get accepted into, to get started. And I think that you'll find that especially the on-campus classes, because all schools are online, right? But the ones that are brick and mortar have on-campus classes, you'll find that you'll learn so much more. You'll learn more from the instructor or the professor. You'll learn from your fellow students. And then you can use that information, especially all that networking with those fellow students, to go out and get positions. Because you're more likely going to work for someone than someone you don't. So let's say you go get a 4-year degree. It's completely online. You've networked with no one. You know how hard it is to get a job in cybersecurity when you know no one? It's like handing the keys to the kingdom to someone you don't know. And that just doesn't happen. You need to go to a place where you can network and you can get to know people. And that will make your career take off, along with that degree and certifications.
Yeah, completely agree. And we're going to talk networking later on in the presentation as well. So Robert asked about Confidence. So let's talk to Confidence next year. You work closely with the Cyber Girls program in Africa, in which young women are educated and upskilled with an eye for placing them in cybersecurity roles to improve their economic opportunities. Can you tell me about these Cyber Girls cohorts, how long they last, the structure of learning, the areas of study, and just kind of how it all works?
I've heard from a lot of alumni that it's the most intensive 8 months of their lives. So I'm taking that Akyl, what Akyl said about long night after long night, the same thing with Robert. It's just something that they get to experience. It's a very wide field. There's so much to learn. You can't learn enough. You can't stop learning. So imagine wanting to come in here. We just need to be able to get you equipped enough to get your foot through the door, because every other day you'll be learning anyway. And I just want to share this before I go further answering my question, that if you don't enjoy learning, if you don't like learning, cybersecurity or information security is not a space for you, sadly. But if you love to learn, you will love it here, honestly. Your learning never stops. As it goes to the structure, so what we do is we mix a lot of the hard skills and then a sprinkle of the human skills, because I don't want to call them soft skills, right? We start off with some prerequisite training. So basically what everyone needs to know. You need to, for example, I described earlier, or you need to understand identity and access management. Like, those are things that you need to get like an intro of some sort. You need to understand network security. You need to be able to know the principles and pillars of cybersecurity and know how that pans out in the industry. So those fundamentals, they get to learn that for 3 months, and it's every weekday for 3 months, literally. So you're committing 4 hours every weekday. So it's quite an intensive training program. And then after that point, we again expose them to different parts of Infosec, and we have about eight parts that they can pick from. We expose them to these different parts of Infosec, and then they see professionals. We work there, they're able to ask questions, and then they choose what part they want. And when they pick what part they want, we're able to narrow down the kind of training materials we give to them. Like I mentioned, there's so much to learn, right? You would even find that when you, for example, you pick up a path such as cloud security, right? You could finish learning with us cloud security and then upskill yourself to get, say, SOC skills and then work in a SOC. So you find that you need to be, like we have all said, flexible and get that base right. It's like baking, right? That crust, that base for your pizza needs to be done very well. So those basics, we get them in, they get to peak, and then we narrow it down. But then there's also a strong emphasis on hands-on training. So there's a lot of labs, and there's also a lot of projects. So you have projects that you get to do as an individual and projects you get to do as a group. Now, for the group projects, what we're really aiming for is ensuring that you're able to open up yourself to collaborating with other people, because cyber is a team sport. There is almost no part of cybersecurity, even when it's a one-person team, that you get to do alone. You definitely will need to collaborate with other stakeholders. So we get to teach you that bit. And then you come out of the program having attempted a couple of sets. You've also had a couple of projects that you would have on your resume. We encourage you to put them on your LinkedIn, have a Medium post about it. So all of that is sitting in your resume. We also really encourage for center tracks to have like a home lab setup, because I've just seen a question around that and I just wanted to add that in. We're encouraged to have a home lab setup, and then you're also playing with all of that and you're documenting them across your LinkedIn, and of course, documenting them on any other blogs you have, all of that reflecting in your CV. So that's what I would say in a nutshell. The program is a combination and a stack of skills that we have looked at job descriptions and also touch base with the industry as to what's required. But just before I close out, because that's been a very long response I've given there, if you don't remember anything I've said to you, remember this one strategy. When you think about any path within cyber that you're interested in, go and look for about 5 job placements, job openings, and then break that down into bits and bobs of like skill sets. Now, what you need is between 60 to 70, I would even say 50 to 60% of those requirements, right? And then you begin to apply for those roles. If you're not sure about how to stack on, that is the way I would work it out. If I was going back and redoing my career, I would start from the goal and then work backwards. That way, you'll be sure you have the skills. That way, you'll also be in touch with what employers currently want. And then you will not just be a stacked person. You would actually be skilled. And I think that's what we lack as an industry. There's a lot of sets, and a lot of people do not have the actual skills. And that's what we lack. It's not we don't have a people shortage, we have a skills shortage. So don't forget that bit. Remember that when you're looking out for opportunities and you're getting ready for them, don't forget that you should be building the skills. And while building the skills, your confidence would also increase.
Yeah. Oh, absolutely. And I'm glad you said 50 to 60%, because I think too many people wait until they have 90 or 99% of the skills in the job listing before they even think about applying for it. And if you're already in that point where you know a lot of this stuff, you know very well that you can learn the extra stuff that you need to do, on the fly, very quickly, on a weekend, what have you. Like you said, this is constant learning here, and you should definitely be jumping after. Again, they can say, let them say no. Don't say no for yourself here. So Confidence mentioned, obviously, clustering certain types of skills and sort of chaining these skills together, whether or not they're cert based or not. So if you're already burning with cybersecurity knowledge and enthusiasm and reading it for fun anyway, you're doing self-paced education yourself, but there are even more focused methods you can add to your schedule. As we can see here, an on-demand training library like the Infosec Skills platform is a comprehensive collection of training resources, including pre-recorded videos, practice exams, labs, and exercises covering various topics and certifications. This approach sort of provides you with customized learning resources tailored to your specific needs. And you can learn more about that, in the links that we've provided or by going to infosecinstitute.com/free. If you're seeking a more structured approach, though, with professional guidance for certification preparation without the intensity of a live boot camp, we also have self-paced boot camps. They provide structured learning without forcing you to commit to a preset schedule that might not fit with your current work or life requirements. And everyone's life is different. And if you don't have that 7 days that you can just completely shut down and do nothing but, then, you know, you might be able to do something like self-paced where you can train at night or on the weekends or during working hours, if that's an option for you, or after working hours, if it's not. So we've got a lot of options here. We've looked at the multi-year process of studying for a bachelor's or master's in computer science. We've knuckled down with cert study guides and self-administered practice tests. So now we're going to talk a little bit about live boot camp. So I want to jump back to Akyl now. You teach CES, CEH, Pentest Plus, Dual, Sec Plus, Cyber Fundamentals. Talk about how your own live boot camp is structured. Like, what are the number of days of these? What's the structure of the learning, and like the way that people learn in your classes?
So the shortest boot camp that I teach is 3 days, and that would be the Cybersecurity Foundations and the Cyber Threat Hunting boot camp, and all of the other ones are 5 days long. So keep in mind, though, the language that we're using is indicative of how much pressure is going to be presented in that class, right? We call it a boot camp, and that means that it is going to be, a trial by fire, drinking from the water hose experience. However, at the same time, I believe that my job is to make sure that I answer all the questions. So I do think that it's a great way to learn, but it's, as we said, if you have a little bit more experience, it's a little bit better for you. And if you don't have the experience, I still recommend going, but don't expect to understand everything in the moment, right? Understand you're going to have to go back. You're going to have to rewatch videos. You're going to have to go look at other material in order for it to make sense. But it is a great way to go ahead and upskill in a very short amount of time.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you for giving us a little context on that. So Infosec also recently launched its first immersive bootcamp programs, which this is still fairly new, but I encourage you to seriously consider if you're looking for an option for kickstarting your career. So an immersive bootcamp combines all these different things. It combines live and self-paced instruction, but the major difference is the length. The live certification bootcamp is less than a week, whereas an immersive bootcamp often lasts 6 months or more. So, for example, Infosec Cybersecurity Foundations Immersive Bootcamp covers 500 plus hours of training over 26 weeks. So it's got a bit of a different goal than a traditional boot camp. So although certification is often included, the goal is about sort of transforming your skill sets in a more profound way. You'll have time to sit with the materials, get personalized guidance from an instructor, and build hands-on experience. So again, this is all stuff you can learn more about at infosecinstitute.com/free. But no matter which way you choose to pursue your cybersecurity career and education, one thing is absolutely positively certain. You're going to learn a lot, and a lot of what you learn is going to be conveyed through the written word. So we've sort of been talking about this, but secret for cybersecurity success is you're going to have to always be learning, and to always be learning, you're going to have to always be reading. I'm a firm believer in knowing all the facets of your job role, both the fun and the challenging. And I just want to be clear that if you're looking to get into just about any facet of cybersecurity, you're going to need to be prepared to do a lot of reading every day, not just in school, but after school, after you get your first job. This is not something where you can learn your basic tools and requirements once and then do that job for 20 years, or even 5 years or 2 years or 2 weeks. You're going to need to be looking for newer, better ways to solve problems. You're going to need to find out what others in your industry are asking about or solving for themselves. And you're going to need to keep a constant eye on what new cyber attack techniques are being tested, tried, and deployed. So I know that we have three very learning intensive and perpetual learning enthusiasts and experts here. So I want to start, Akyl, where do you go to keep up with new tech and features and trends in cybersecurity? Do you have certain information sources or readings that you go to on a daily or weekly basis?
Definitely. So I have about 23 RSS feeds that I keep up with. There's, threat-free feeds, just so I could throw one out there, Shriner on Security, which is Bruce Schreiner's blog, and also social media, right? The social media has been a great place to keep updated with cybersecurity. And I didn't think that that would be the case, but I think that our industry has done a really good job at adapting to social media. So there's a ton of YouTube channels, Instagram channels, and Twitter channels, or X now, that focus on micro learning and keeping you up to date. So definitely get out there and start looking for those. It will change the way that you look at learning.
Yeah, great answer. Confidence, how much do you read and research per week, and what aspects of the industry are you monitoring and keeping at the forefront of?
I would definitely say I love conferences. So a few of them that I identify, one of them is RSA, for example. But it's not just attending the conference itself. I'm definitely looking at RSA 365, so looking at the videos on demand at different points. But I also have some micro habits, which I like to share with the girls that we train. So I read at least one article every day. So there is always one article I'm reading. And so I would start my day or end my day with an article. So typically I would have minimum one article read, but on many days I read more than one article. So that's something I would definitely say. Pick a couple of blogs that you really maybe love what they blog about, or maybe the interests that you have, they cover that. So I generally have one general purpose blog, so maybe like a news blog, like Bleeping Computers. And then I have another one that is in my core area of interest, and a couple of them like that. So I do that mix. And then I also read reports. That is a major part if you're just getting to, you're going into the industry. So you want to look at, say, Verizon data breach report. You want to look at Median's reports if you're interested in, I mean, not just if you're interested in cloud security, but everyone should be interested in, right? Because it cuts across how we're even delivering the services we are delivering or solving the problems we're solving. So you definitely want to look at all of those annual or biannual reports and binge on them. They give you a very good idea of what's happening in the industry, what's planned for. And there's something very profound about this particular habit when I hear some of the girls that we train come back and speak about it. So when you go to interviews, because this knowledge is not knowledge you gain one day, right? It's been accumulating. You'll be asked certain questions about certain scenarios, and you remember articles where you read about remediation. It will just come to you, and you'll be able to discuss them as though you've done them before. So really make a habit. I call it one cyber thing a day. If you have that one cyber thing a day habit, you would not realize where you're pulling knowledge from when you need it. It will just come to you.
Awesome recommendation. I will absolutely double or echo what Confidence says, that I think there's a lot more to be said about the importance of doing a little bit every day rather than a lot, maybe 1 day or 2 days a week. I know it can be very hard to keep up with your studies or the things that you want from life. And so sometimes a day or two will slip by, and then you decide on the weekend, all right, I'm going to really hunker down, and you sit, with your Sec Plus book for 6 hours until you're, drooling on the pages and half asleep. But, and there's certainly a lot for that, to be said for that as well. But there is a lot to be said for sitting down with that book every single day, 15 minutes, first time you wake up in the morning, 15 minutes after you're done for the day. Just keep it in your head. And as Confidence said, if you're constantly thinking about this and seeing what's in the industry, this stuff is just going to start to soak in, and it's going to start answering questions you have in other places. I think that's awesome advice. Thank you, Confidence. So, Robert, I'm going to jump to you. Do you have any tips for making this amount of reading and constant learning part of your regular routine?
Well, I'll tell you, I've fallen asleep in a lot of books as well. So,
yeah,
you really have to make it a habit, and it takes roughly 7 to 14 days to make a habit. The beginning of my day is always jumping right to the news, the general news first, and then going right into technology and hacker news and things like that. I also like to look at government sites, because government sites like NIST, the NSA, CISA at CISA.gov. They all have daily updates and reports on new vulnerabilities that are found. Super helpful that you can really see what's about to hit big time in the news is usually going to hit these government sites to let you know what vulnerabilities are there, and then the vendor sites are going to all come out with how you can fix that or keep that from happening. I like to think of our knowledge as a brick wall. We all have a brick wall of knowledge. The problem is that we don't always have all of our bricks in our brick wall. And I think that frustrates a lot of new learners because they end up saying, well, I understand this, but I don't understand that. And that you really need to be patient as a new learner, somebody new to cybersecurity or any other technology, because these bricks will fill in over time. The second time you read that book, the third time you watch that video, that's when things are going to click into place for you. So read what you can, do what you can, even if it feels a little bit like, it's a hodgepodge of different pieces of information. You will be surprised over the next year or two how those pieces will all fit together for you.
Yeah. Awesome. Yeah, absolutely true. I think great advice from all three of you. I really appreciate the detail. So I'm going to jump to some of the questions that we're getting. We're about to move into another territory. So I want to kind of get through some of the questions that people are asking around study and certs and so forth. So I want to start with Oluwato Biloba. Apologies if I got your name not quite right there. I hope that was close. They say, I just transitioned in cybersecurity last year and talked about some of the different certs they're in, but said, I think need to write Security Plus after these exams. Also in final year of university studying mathematics and would love to do his master's in cybersecurity. I'm wondering if any of you have any thoughts on whether this person says they want to know whether to do their master's in school or start applying for jobs. So, maybe I'll throw this to Robert first, because I think there's that question of higher education, and then there's higher education, and who is a master's in cybersecurity for, and what is, if the other one kind of opened doors, I almost think a master's kind of closes some doors in certain ways, right? I mean, you're sort of locking yourself into a different type of career. Can you talk about that at all?
Yeah, masters are generally going to be for one of two things. You're either going into management, or you're going into very deep, types of technology. And I'd like to reach back to something Confidence said earlier, and that is that go to Indeed.com, go to LinkedIn, go to some of these different job sites, and find out what they're looking for. After you have got an idea of the type of job that you want to get, and there's dozens of different overlapping job titles, that are out there. There's no single government agency that says, this job title equals these, types of things that you're going to need to know. No, it's all done by industry, and industry is very disjointed in this area. So you need to go to these job sites and you need to say, okay, I want to be a cybersecurity analyst. You type that in, you put in the area where you want to work, remote, on site, a certain area, and then you find out what certifications, what education and what experience you're going to need. And those are the three of the four things you need: certification, education, experience. The fourth one is enthusiasm. If you are not enthusiastic, if you're not passionate about that area that you want to go into, then none of the other stuff matters, right? So if you're passionate about, a certain area, cybersecurity, then and you really want to get to that education at the master's level, fantastic. You're going to be great at this. But if you're doing it just because you think you need it for a job, you're not going to be great at it. You've got to have that enthusiasm to decide how far along you want to take your education, and look at those job sites that tell you what you're going to need.
Perfect transition to... Oh, go ahead. I'm sorry.
Can I just add to what Robert said? It was just too profound to let go of. I needed to drop that more. And I would just share a personal experience. So I had a recruiter, reach out to me, and they've been trying to hire women that are knowledgeable. And this is not a gender thing, but yeah, just let me land. So they're trying to get more women into their team, but of course, they're not hiring because they're women. They want women who are skilled, right? And so they start interviewing people. And the people who came through certain boot camps, and then they had all of the training, and then they were interviewing them, but just none of them clicked. And it just occurred to the person interviewing that they did not demonstrate passion. And I cannot tell you enough how much passion, which I'm calling passion and Robert is calling enthusiasm, really just drives you. You
Yes.
really come off hungry for knowledge. And the thing about being hungry for knowledge is you're constantly, you know, eating every form of knowledge. I'm saying metaphorically here, you're constantly trying to take in knowledge. You want to learn more. The eagerness is in your voice, is in everything, and you reek of it. I mean reek is in the good term, right? You would definitely come up very passionate. And the truth is, when you're getting your first role, you're most likely going to be hired for your potential because you do not have experience yet. So if you're not passionate, you cannot exactly show potential, because potential will be both not just in your voice, but in the things you've done before that point, like Akyl was speaking about and like Robert was speaking about. So please, in all of what we've said, remember that you need to be passionate to be here.
Absolutely. Perfect transition into our next section here. I want to make sure that we help people to get noticed by the right people and make sure that their passions are properly recognized. So when cyberwork guests and leaders of the industry say they hire for passion and credentials, what they leave unsaid is that you need to see that passion screaming out of your resume or CV. Just like Confidence says, you need to practically reek with it. And even at the beginner level, there are things you can do to stand out. So I'm going to open up this up to the panel. So there are things that there are ways you don't need to have your past experience, job experience, to get your first job. So let's start with Confidence, and then Akyl, and then Robert. Can you suggest a manageable cybersecurity project that you could do at home and put on your resume to show potential employers that you've gone beyond theory and can actually do the thing?
Okay, so I would say it depends on what sort of roles you're looking for, right? But for just about everyone who does, who would go into a role that is technical, you need to minimally have a home lab that you've set up, and you sort of would test out, you sort of would use some of the tools, maybe free editions of the tools that you would most likely be using in your workplace, and have them installed and begin to use. So for example, if you're going into web application security, you need to have burp suite, for example, set up on your computer. You need to be able to use an intentionally vulnerable web application and show that you've been able to, find those vulnerabilities and be able to maybe document how you did that and what remediations or what things should have been put in place to make that application safer. Now, after doing that, of course, the documentation part is what makes it able to sit on your CV. You can't put that home lab on your CV, right? So you would then put down the steps on Medium, or you use, say, LinkedIn articles, and then you do a post. Now, I as a person, I lean more towards LinkedIn. Now, because LinkedIn will do two key things for you. The article sits there and you can just pull out the link and put on your resume, right? But aside putting that on your resume as well, when you post it out on LinkedIn, LinkedIn is one of the social media websites where cybersecurity leaders and cybersecurity professionals, generally speaking, are really spending time. So between X and LinkedIn, I would say more LinkedIn these days after what happened recently, right, with the takeover. But I would say when you put it on LinkedIn, you have a bit more eyeballs that a random person, a random recruiter can find you and then basically reach out to you. I've had people who have had recruiters reach out to them because they were documenting their learning. And please don't think that it all has to be perfect. Like we've said, even on your role, even when you're 10 years in, there are still things you would just randomly Google. That's the truth, right? So don't wait till you're perfect. What you need to do is have the boldness to learn in public, if I was to put it that way, to grow in public. And then once you have this sort of projects and you have them documented on your LinkedIn, which again will differ per the parts in cyber or the kind of roles you're preparing for, then of course you then begin to connect with other people as well within your local environment, within your country, within your city, and then before you talk about internationally.
Yeah, great advice all. Now we're getting close to the end of the hour here, so I'm going to jump ahead a little bit. But I wanted, I know we have some people in the audience because a few of them have reached out to me before. that they're entering cybersecurity as maybe a second or even a third act in their career, which is something I love to see. Cyber professionals frequently come from other careers, even non-tech focused ones, like engineers, lawyers, healthcare administrators, teachers, psychologists, business administrators, AV professionals, auditors of all kinds, you name it. Your skills and talents are desired and are absolutely vital to the cybersecurity industry. And I'll say that as many times as you need to hear it. Please come join us. So I want to ask each of you, do you have any tips or suggestions for how to translate a previous career's skills and accomplishments into clear signs to hiring managers that you understand the assignment, you can do the job, and maybe you just need some quick tech upskilling? So let's start with Robert on this, and then go Akyl, and then Confidence as well. Do you have any experience working with people who are coming to cybersecurity later on in their career?
Oh, absolutely. I've trained people as like their second act, their third act. Sometimes they're getting money from the government to be retrained because maybe they used to make wagon wheels and nobody makes those anymore, right? So
right.
We've got to the government helps us out by doing that kind of thing. But let's say, for instance, you're already in IT, but you want to transition to cybersecurity. And the reason I'm mentioning that is because I'm seeing several questions in the Q&A where people are asking that exact thing. So let's take, for an example, finding networking abnormalities like high traffic counts that can lead to the discovery of malware or denial of service attacks. That's something, a sysadmin would be looking at, a network admin would be looking at, but can translate into cybersecurity. Those are stories that you can tell the hiring manager, hey, this is how I discovered malware. This is how I discovered an attack. Properly securing Active Directory can lead to hacker prevention from privilege escalation. Something else that you can share, how you secured Active Directory as a sysadmin, but now you would like to take that further in the cybersecurity field. Unusual firewall and server logs. Those can lead to discovery of hacking attempts. All these can assist in migrating from other parts of IT into cybersecurity, as long as you can document them and tell your story on how it is that would translate into that field.
Akyl, any thoughts on that? Have you, or Confidence? I see you raised your hand. Do you have any thoughts for a later period cyber people?
Yeah, I just wanted to add to what Robert has said. If you are coming from a non-technical background, but maybe a regulated industry, that's also something you can tell your story in such a way that it connects it. Because what you have shown is you can follow processes and procedure. So it depends on what part of Infosec you come into. Those are very, very clear transferable skills you can link in. Another key as a career that I've helped so many people cross over from is people with legal background. So lawyers, for example, very easy connect would be compliance, right? Right out the box, they sort of like understand this is how things are done. They know how to document, they know how to write policies. So if you would definitely find that for almost every field I can possibly think about, even for stay-at-home moms, right? There is something you have already in terms of what you've always done that can be applicable in this industry. What you would then focus on would be the hard skills that then shows an employer that you can do the work, and then the human skills that we've spoken about in terms of connecting what you previously had in here. But as long as you can solve problems, there will definitely be an entry point for you here.
Yeah. Akyl, anything to add to this?
The last thing that I would add, I think both Robert and Confidence did a great job summarizing that one for you guys. So I don't want to touch on it too much, but if you are transferring into the industry, take a look at the cybersecurity framework. And the reason I say take a look at the cybersecurity framework is there are directors and hiring managers spending all day looking at the tasks that are described in the cybersecurity framework, like asset management. And if you're coming over from a warehouse job or a retail job, you can provide some insights into asset management. And that's how you know that you have a transferable skill, right? So I would recommend looking at what the directors and the hiring managers are looking at and what are the requirements that they have. Because when they hire you, that's the problem that they want you to solve for them.
Yeah. Yeah, no, absolutely. I think that's a superb way of thinking about all of this. So, okay, we're getting real close to the end here. Can we talk a little bit about networking? Because I think there's, some stigma around the idea of it's not what you know, it's who you know, and all this job sort of being, hired behind the scenes. But I forget who said it. Maybe Confidence said it that, or Akyl said it, but. Hiring someone new without experience is always going to be a little bit fraught. You just have a piece of paper to go on, and so if you are able to network with the people that you want to network with, and what your desired outcome is going to be, and all that, what are your thoughts? And we can round robin this however we want, but what are your thoughts on newcomers getting into networking? What is your best tip for that?
Well, knowing someone will help you get a job, but knowing how to do your job will help you keep your job.
Right. Yes, absolutely.
But networking includes getting to know other students in school, getting to know your professors. It also includes going to vendor meetings. If you live near a larger population, you go to a vendor meeting for Cisco, for Microsoft, for Palo Alto, for whatever it is. If you're not going to college and you don't know anybody, those are great places to network. And then, of course, you can find places online such as Reddit. Reddit's a good place to go to network with other people in your area of interest.
Excellent. Confidence, Akyl, anything to add?
Really quickly, I would say find community. So any kind of community that's related to who you are and what you do, find that community locally and internationally and connect. There's also another very major mistake I see a lot of early entrants making. You're always drawn to connecting to people ahead of you in the industry, and you sort of like play down your peers. There is magic sitting there. Someone I know just got a job. She was interviewed with that person was hired, and now they need another hand. But she built a relationship with that person. And so the person that was already doing the job well just brought her back on board. So if you don't have those peers who get to hear things that are not posted on social media, because a lot of the cybersecurity roles are never advertised on social media, right? So if you don't get to hear those things, there is no way to be able to apply for them. So definitely community, I would say volunteer, make friends with peers that are just like you trying to find roles. They would see something, hear something, and you'll make them available to you. And also, don't forget to be your own signpost. So, for example, if you're doing something very technical, begin to put together like a git for yourself that shows what you've done over time. Begin to put together your LinkedIn, making sure that you're showcasing what you're learning over there. And I would say not just use a push effect, but also a pull effect. So when you're putting out those things you're capable of and showing yourself as knowledgeable and growing and very eager to learn more, you begin to attract more people to yourself as well. So I would say a combination of those things. Don't forget the people who are on the same level as you in terms of where you are in your career.
Excellent. Akyl, I'll give you the last word here. Any networking thoughts?
I completely agree with Confidence in terms of look to your peers. One of the things that I did for the people that go through my classes that I think has had the best effect is creating a Discord. And when they need to study, they study together. But the thing about your peers is if you guys are trying to break into the industry and you find that you're alongside other people, they're going to have success, right? And you're going to have success, and success happens at different rates. Now, if my friend has success and they remember, hey, you know what? I remember studying on this Discord with him. I remember that I needed this. That's where the opportunities come from. They see how diligent you were in the early days and you stuck with it. So I 100% agree with, utilize your peers. And also, let's go ahead and say this. Networking can be a double-edged sword, right? And here's why I say it can be a double-edged sword. Oftentimes people put too much pressure on networking, right? It's now you're worried a little bit too much about whether or not people like you. Remember, it's not about that, right? It's not about people liking you. It's about having a unified goal, right? So remind yourself what the unified goal is. If everybody's trying to break into the industry and create a safer version of the internet, don't get distracted by all the other stuff. That's all I would say about it.
Perfect. All right. Well, we are about to wrap up here. I will just say thank you to everyone at home or at the office or wherever you're listening or watching to today's episode of CyberWork Live. Go to infosecinstitute.com/free to check out all of our free resources for CyberWork listeners. We also offer a download of our free cybersecurity talent development ebook, which has in-depth training plans for the 12 most common roles, including SOC analyst, cloud security engineer, information risk analyst, privacy manager, secure coder, and pen tester. Thank you once again to our wonderful panelists. You went above and beyond in helping everyone. Bye, everybody.